Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana. Thanks for tuning in today. We're so glad that you're here. We hope that you're ready to learn some things about defunding darkness and funding the light. So that is our mission here at Financial Issues, is to help educate people about the financial issues that we deal with on a daily basis from a biblical worldview. We believe that all truth is found in the Scripture, and that it is the Bible is a great. I read an analogy one time that BIBLE stands for basic instructions before leaving Earth. And so
that's good, Shana. I like that.
If we can consider our Bibles to be that, then that'll be the first place that we go to get answers to every question, not AI.
There you go. Right.
Chat or Grok or Siri or whoever you ask. I don't know. So there's a built-in Holy Spirit, a built-in helper in each and every one of us. And so we just want to help you tap into that, tap into the truth that's found in the Bible, because the Bible has the best plan for every single thing that we could be facing in our lives. So if you're a partner with us, we thank you. We appreciate our partners so much. We are a listener and partner funded ministry. So if you like the work that we're doing here, we would encourage you to become a monthly soldier. You can commit to give $20 a month or whatever your budget can afford to help us to stay on the air and to continue encouraging people to defund darkness and to fund the light. If you want to be your own portfolio manager, you can become a partner for just $132 a year. So you can do one or the other or both. We're happy to receive the support. So on today's show, we're going to answer a lot of questions that have been coming in. We're sort of getting a backlog there, so we'll get to some of those. And then we'll touch on some economic news from this week and get encouragement from the scriptures from Psalm 72:4. Let's start with the May Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index. So, once a month, there's a couple of surveys out there that tend to take the temperature of the American consumer because, our economy is very consumer driven. Americans spend a lot of money. That's what all of this trade talk and tariff talk is. That's the ace in the hole that Donald Trump has, is that we, the people, are a very, very highly sought after and attractive consumer base. We are prosperous here in this country by the grace of God. We have money to spend and people want to sell us stuff. And so that's the ace in the hole that the Trump administration has when they're dealing with these other companies. That's why he can say something like, we're going to consider putting these huge tariffs on different countries, and they're beating a path to his door, to the White House door, to talk to him about what they can do to keep access to this consumer base. So in the May Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index, we saw a pretty steep rebound. It went from 85.7 to 98, and that was 11 points above what was expected. So the survey conveyed a sense of that people have see a brighter future rather than any real change to their present situation. So they're saying my situation hasn't changed much, but I'm much more optimistic about the future. And of course, this survey was conducted in May after the news came out about, in early April, Liberation Day. That's when all of the bad news came out about the high tariffs that the Trump administration was going to put on other countries. And then in May, that kind of eased off. China's come to the table, UK's come to the table. There have been, well over 70 countries that have come to the United States to talk trade. And so consumers are feeling better about that. So the expectations component of that survey jumped to 72.8 from 55.4, while the present situation rose more modestly from 135.9 to from 131. So the answers to the current state of the labor market questions were mixed. Those that said that jobs were plentiful was up by 0.6 points to 31.8, but fell by 2.4 points last month. So folks were a little bit more optimistic in the future of the labor market rather than in the current situation, just as they were with spending, but perhaps seeing more job opportunities as companies are beginning to make it in America again. So seeing this onslaught of companies announcing great, trillion mixed numbers that I hear, but, anywhere from, I think, $7 to $10 trillion of investment that companies have committed to investing in our economy here, and that means more U.S. jobs. So there has been somewhat of a disconnect between what economists call the hard data and the soft data. The soft data is the feeling data, what we feel or what we think about what's going to happen. The hard data is what has actually happened. So there's been this disconnect between what people say that they feel or think the future holds and what they are actually doing. Because if the survey says that consumer confidence is waning, that creates a fear that spending will slow. Because if consumers really believe that the future is not very bright, they're going to go into a hunker down mentality. They're going to start saving more money. They're going to be, more value oriented. They're going to forgo certain purchases. We're going to see savings increase and things like that. And, that mentality is bad for a consumer driven economy because it slows down growth. But the reality is that spending hasn't slowed. So although consumers have been expressing fear that things are going to slow down, that they might lose their jobs, that that inflation will rise faster than what they're bringing in, their actions haven't showed that on a broad basis. So in the latest survey, spending intentions for all major goods categories, so for homes, for vehicles, for major appliances, etc., the spending intentions came in higher. The survey said that people are still spending on services as well. The one quote from that survey said that dining out remained number one among spending intentions, followed by streaming services, while plans to spend on movies, theater, live entertainment, and sporting events increased the most over the last month. So the message was consistent in all demographics, all income and age groups, and all political parties. So the Conference Board said this: the rebound was already visible before the May 12th U.S.-China trade deal, but gained momentum afterwards. The survey said this too. This month's survey also asked consumers how worried they were about being laid off, not being able to afford necessities, and not being able to afford desired goods and services. Overall, they were more anxious about affordability than job security. Nearly half of consumers said that they were concerned about not being able to buy the things that they need or want, compared to less than a quarter who were worried about losing their jobs. So, that's a bit of good news, but it also shows how fickle the consumer is. We've seen the responses move wildly based on news and headlines, and move less based on what actually ends up happening. So, we see the markets jump one way or another when new information comes out about potentially higher tariffs versus people are coming to, countries are coming to the table. We see the markets reverse course. So, we encourage you to keep a level head. Take a long-term view of investing. Don't get caught up in headlines. Sure, listen. Consider it being informed or entertainment at the least, I guess, if you like to stay in the know about the things that are happening. But, if you just commit to being a long-term investor, Number one, investing in companies that are not grieving the heart of the Lord by the things that they are supporting with shareholder dollars, and looking far out. We don't care what the trends are for the next 5 months. We don't care which sector's going to win at the end of the year. What we care about are what are the trends for the next 5 to 10 years, and how can we responsibly invest in those things, to help grow our money, to keep us ahead of inflation, and help us to meet all of the goals that we have. So, speaking of goals that we have a goal to help preborn ministries raise, $280,000,
Shana. Yep.
$280,000 to put 50 more ultrasound machines in clinics around the country. There's a match to do that. There's a donor that's going to buy the machines if we'll pay for the ultrasounds, and a match back to Financial Issues. So if you have not yet done that, we encourage you, please go to financialissues.org and click on that preborn banner. Consider what you can do to help us meet that goal, to save babies and to save mothers and fathers. Stay tuned. We're going to take a break, but we'll be back with more Financial Issues right after this.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
I remember my life before I met Jesus. I was most of the time afraid. I remember one of my teachers gave the classroom an invitation for Crossroads. When they talked to me about the love of God, I felt a sort of peace in my heart. I will commit myself to learn more about God's Word, to be able to show others.
To help reach more kids like Louise with the life-changing hope of the gospel, visit reachOurSchools.com.
May is a time to honor mothers, their strength, sacrifice, and unconditional love. But for many women, motherhood feels uncertain and overwhelming. Fear and doubt leave them considering abortion. You can give hope. Just $28 helps a woman hear her baby's heartbeat, a powerful moment that leads 80% of mothers to choose life. Go to preborn.com/FISM to give today.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for hanging with us today. Let's get to some encouragement from the scriptures. Our stewardship verse today, Psalm 72:4. He will bring justice to the poor of the people. He will save the children of the needy and will break in pieces the oppressor. Wow. Crushing oppressors. Doesn't sound very turning the other cheek like Seth. What do you think?
It's interesting, Shana. I always get a chuckle when I read Psalms like this, which are the imprecatory Psalms. There are several like them, but it's funny because we're just not very comfortable praying like this. We've been brought up kind of in this culture that puts a heavy emphasis on God's love, and it's good. I mean, God is a God of love, to be sure. He's also a God of justice and a God of wrath, and I think we forget that sometimes. We need to get more comfortable praying these prayers, of course, with humility and wisdom, Shana. But this is one of those prayers that God would literally break oppressors in pieces. So he would crush their bones. Essentially, he would kill them. Notice the promise of justice, but also the promise of salvation for the children of the needy, Shana. I think that's really fascinating here. It sounds a whole lot like what we're trying to accomplish here by the grace of God with what we're doing with preborn right now, with this campaign you just mentioned in that last segment there, trying to save children of needy people.
Yeah. It reminds me, have you ever heard that country song that says that I'll pray for you and I'll pray that your brakes go out running down a hill? And
a rather misleading title. Although if it's praying the imprecatory Psalms, I guess it's not misleading.
Because this is what they had in mind. Pray that a flower pot falls from a windowsill and knocks you in the head, and that your birthday comes and nobody calls, and that you're...
Oh, that's a dig.
that you're flying high when your engine stalls, and all of those imprecatory prayers, but that may be how we do it. And we chuckle and we laugh and it tickles our flesh, but it's probably not accurate to describe God's ways and the ways that he wants us to call on him to save the poor and the oppressed. But, God is a perfect balance of justice and mercy. Because God is perfectly just, he can't just let oppressors get away with things. He can't just let even small mistakes slide. They must be covered. And that's what Jesus came to do. When we sin, we want mercy. But when we find ourselves the victim of oppressors, we desire justice. We want God to see and identify with our hurts and stand up for and defend us. But we should desire God's justice and not fear it, because God has made a way for sinners to be forgiven. That is the good news. But if sinners refuse forgiveness, the hard truth is that the just consequences of having their heads crushed is exactly what should be. So yes, I agree that we need to agree with God's principles about mercy and justice. So, let's stand up. Let's stand up with God, and let's provide the money that preborn needs to get these ultrasound machines in these clinics, so that women can see those precious little bones that they maybe consider crushing themselves, if they're considering having an abortion, that they may see these things on the ultrasound, that they may hear the heartbeat that would be snuffed out should they go through with an abortion, and should that cause them to want to protect and defend that life that is growing inside of them rather than eliminating it, and that they would hear the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that they too would choose eternal life. So you can do that by, I don't know, do we have the little QR code up on the
QR
screen?
code is up on the screen right now, so you can follow that, folks. Put your phone right up to it. It takes you to preborn.com/FISM.
And then if you're not there, you can get there by going to our website, financialissues.org, or you can even call pound 250 and say the keyword baby. When you do make that contribution, make sure that you tell them that it is a result of the megaphone of financial issues, because there is a match. That's God's math. That not only will that a donor be triggered to buy an ultrasound machine when we pay for the ultrasounds, but there is also a generous donation that will be given back to financial issues. So you really can multiply your giving efforts here, and we would encourage you to do that. All right, let's get to some questions.
Yeah, sounds good, Shana. This first one up is Jeanette. Jeanette's 63. A good foundational question here. So she says, I'm just getting started in the FISM portfolio. Is it better to fill a little bit in each sector, or buy in 4 or 5 sectors and then grow those? And then as I have funds available, how do I add to the portfolio? I appreciate your help.
Yeah, so one of the core foundational principles of our strategy is diversification. So, we like to see you have at least one company in each sector. So, if you're working with limited resources, it's best to try to get at least something in each of the sector. If you're using the portfolio tracker, you'll be able to see that on a bar chart. You want to have something that shows up there. And then as money becomes available, just deploy that money to the sector that you're the most underweighted in. There's even a nifty little feature on the portfolio tracker. There's a button that you can push, and it'll pop up, and it'll give you the dollar amounts based on your portfolio. It'll tell you how many dollars still need to be deployed into each category. So We love the new website. We love the new tools. I hope that if you're a partner, you have been exploring those and getting used to the new website.
Yeah, it's good, Shannon. You know, Rebecca actually has a question in a similar vein there. She says, I've been a partner. I use all the tools, and it's been a great help to me just to get started in building my portfolio. Now, I'm 41 years old, but it's been over a year since I initially set up my portfolio, and I'm feeling a little lost. How can I know when to keep contributing to certain stocks, stop investing in others, or even sell? Is there guidance for maintaining and adjusting our portfolios over time, or maybe a feature I'm missing that could help bridge that gap?
Well, again, that portfolio tracker tool is the best tool for that. So, you know, once you have your portfolio built, you need to give it time to work. So, you know, certain investments will perform better under certain market conditions. Other investments will perform better under different market conditions. And we have this business cycle that continues to trudge on. So you need to give the stocks in the positions in your portfolio time to actually do their job. So no more than quarterly, like every 3 months, but you know, it could be every 3, 4, 6 months. But I would say at least once a year, you need to take a rebalancing look at your portfolio. If you're contributing on a regular basis, maybe you want to do it every 3 months because that cash is going to build up and you're going to need to deploy it into certain areas. And so the thing that you would do is kind of use those guidelines, those rules of thumb that we have for establishing meaningful positions in portfolios. So not allowing any one position to get too overweighted. That would be one trigger that you need to sell part of an investment, is if it does really well and it grows. Let's say that you originally started with 3% allocation in your portfolio to that one holding, and let's say it does really well and now it makes up over 10% of your portfolio. Well, that's a trigger that you need to pare that back, that you need to sell some of what you have. Also, if you get a sell alert, that's going to be the surefire, easy way to know that it's time to sell something. So you may want to just go back and check on a regular basis the alert tab on the portfolio tracker. Just make sure that you haven't missed anything. That's going to give you, that's the surefire way of knowing when it's time to sell something, when to add to something. If you have a position maybe that hasn't done well and you originally took a 1% stake in that position, but now it's fallen, you know, in price and now it's down, that may be something that you consider. Just take a look at, make sure there's been no sell alerts for that particular company. Take a look at some of the recent news on it and decide if you feel comfortable deploying more money into it. I would say if it's on the buy list, you could feel really good about doing that. So, you know, between 1 and 4 times a year, you're just going to take a look at that portfolio tracker. You're going to see where areas that you're overweighted in, and see areas that you're underweighted, and that's going to give you a really great start. There's even that button that'll tell you, you know, how much you need to sell out of a certain sector, how much you need to deploy to a different sector.
Awesome, Shana. Next one up here, we have Carol Lee. She asked a question about the energy sector yesterday, and she had a similar question about the energy sector as well. She's saying, do you think any of these energy stocks will soon be back on the buy list? She lists several of them there, Shana. What do you think? She's 65.
Okay, she lists E31. So no on this one. It is on BRI watch, meaning that we have reason to believe that it could be engaging in activities that would make it dirty, that would make it not a clean investment. It has been on BRI watch for a while and it hasn't done anything else, but if it does, you know, we would be still sending out a sell alert for that. So we wouldn't want you to deploy more money into a company that could be triggered dirty at any time. She also mentions E32 and E34. These two are similar. The way that you can tell is to look at the industry. In the industry column, it'll tell what kind of companies they are, and also reading the description of what the companies do is another way of doing it. But we have 2 of their competitors on our buy list that we like better right now, so those 2 probably won't be coming back on the list anytime soon. E58, that is a good long-term hold. It's in a part of the energy sector that is going to be that has been struggling and is going to struggle even more as long as oil prices were low. And I think that we're in a stretch where oil prices are going to remain low. In fact, that's one of Trump's stated goals, is to keep oil prices in the $50 to $60 a barrel range. So companies that refine products, their profits are really tied to the price of oil. When oil is high, they tend to make a lot more money than they do when prices are low. So it's a good long-term hold. I wouldn't get rid of it, but as long as you have a meaningful position in it, I don't know that I would be wanting to add to it much right now.
Good stuff, Shana. Yeah, we're at that point right now where we could probably squeeze one more in, but I'm not sure we'll have time for it.
Probably not. I'd rather tell everybody to tune into Bible study tomorrow.
Yeah.
You want to tell them where you're going to be?
Be glad to, Shana. Daniel chapter 5, verses 17 through 24. So the first time we hear Daniel speak in probably close to, I'm going to say 50 years or so, Shana, since, of course, we're in the reign of Belshazzar now from Nebuchadnezzar. Quite a different Daniel that we hear here, but the same faithfulness to God that we'll hear as he pronounces judgment upon Belshazzar. Daniel 5.
Tune in tomorrow morning if you want to hear it, folks.
Yep.
Well, if you're listening to an outlet that only carries the short version of the show, we wish you a farewell. For everyone else, though, stick around. We've got more financial issues coming right up.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of, this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
When God calls us to follow him, it starts as a personal conviction.
When I realized what I had been investing my money in, God immediately convicted my heart.
But as we experience the joy that comes from following God, we encourage others to join us in our journey.
If anybody's listening, thinking about joining, there's nothing like it.
Just want to say I'm a very happy 7-year partner. It's been a great ride.
It's been the best financial decision I've ever made.
As more people join us, our impact for Christ compounds.
Due to mounting external pressure, John Deere will no longer be participating in social or cultural awareness parades, festivals, or events.
Together we take the form of Christ, promoting good and eradicating evil.
You guys are on the front line of the battle. All we have to do is get in behind you and be strong, faithful.
Align your investments with your faith. Become an FISM partner today at financialissues.org.
May is a time to honor mothers, their strength, sacrifice, and unconditional love. But for many women, motherhood feels uncertain and overwhelming. Fear and doubt leave them considering abortion. You can give hope. Preborn provides free ultrasounds and shares the life-changing message of the gospel, reaching women in clinics across the country. When you give to Preborn, you're giving these women a chance to choose life. Just $28 helps a woman hear her baby's heartbeat, a powerful moment that leads 80% of mothers to choose life. And when we come together to sponsor 200 ultrasounds, we'll equip a preborn clinic with a life-saving ultrasound machine. Will you help make motherhood possible? Go to preborn.com/FISM to give today. That's preborn.com/FISM.
Hey, great to be here with you folks. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that segment there with Shana. We'll do a little follow-up there in just a moment, but I did want to just share with you some great news here. We're at 60% of our preborn goal here, over $166,000 raised. You all have done a phenomenal job. That means right around 30 ultrasound machines that we've been able to underwrite by God's grace. The Financial Issues family coming up big once again. We still got a long way to go, folks. We got about $115,000 or so left to raise in these last 4 days or so. So if you're someone who is really kind of on the fence, if you're considering, you know what, I've been listening to these guys talk about this for the whole month. I'm not sure if I'm going to give to preborn. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to consider giving to preborn. That may very well be, I'm not going to assume it is, but it may be the Lord telling you, hey, now's the time. So preborn.com/FISM if the Lord is leading you to give. And that amount is between you and him. I'm not going to tell you how much to give. Some of you can give more, some can give less. Every single cent counts. Every single cent counts for saving babies, but it also counts as a gift back to FISM too. So just once again, the entire amount that we raise will be given back to FISM as a gift also. So yeah, if you love preborn, give to preborn. If you love FISM, give to preborn, and let's knock this thing out of the park. You guys have done a great job, and it's been an honor to get to be a part of this here. We got some big geopolitical news this morning. Sam brought this to my attention. So the U.S. Court of International Trade yesterday blocked some steep reciprocal tariffs imposed by President Trump on scores of countries in April. Sam, this was interesting news here. I think really the fascinating part is as we look at the power struggle within our country, remember there's a good system of checks and balances between the executive and the legislative branch and the congressional branch as well. The congressional branch seems to be left out of this whole thing, Sam.
Yeah, they don't want to get involved because they realize if they do anything that could be interpreted as controversial,
exactly,
and they'll then lose their precious seats. So they're basically just
lose their votes.
Seat warmers at this point.
Yeah, which is really kind of frustrating. What's also frustrating about this is it seems like there's a huge amount of power that is held in courts lower than the Supreme Court. But the fact that they have the power to do this, kind of what it seems like is because they just generally don't like Trump. I'm not sure that's what it is, but that's kind of what it, writing on the wall, Sam, seems to be that.
This really comes at the worst possible time.
It does.
I mean, to be clear, there are some questions about does Trump have the authority to do this with all these tariffs? I think the best example was when Trump declared a national emergency in the movie industry to do a 100% tariff on foreign films. There's a pretty big question mark about whether or not he can actually do that. That seems a little silly, a little bit of an overreach. So there is a valid conversation to be having here, but it's equally insane to say that a single court, just 3 people, can override a president's entire foreign policy agenda when it comes to trade. So if the argument Trump's overstepping his bounds, I think the argument could also go from the White House, they are challenging this, that the court is also overstepping.
Absolutely. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. I'm going to try to get Matt Staver on at some point to give some insight on this, Sam, and I'm sure Shana will be talking about it as well. But wanted to bring that to all of your attention. That was kind of the big geopolitical news. Big market news was NVIDIA reported earnings yesterday, which we'll get to in just a moment. But before we get to all that, Sam, why don't we get to a good question we got from David. David is a partner, and he's asking about some things with the buy and the broad list.
Yeah, David is 70 years old. He said, I noticed when you updated the buy and broad list, you added a new term of BRI watch. What exactly does this mean? So, Seth, you got the buys, you got the holds, you got the sells, and now there's this new thing, BRI watch. What exactly is that?
Well, David, thanks for that question. It's a good one. And it's, it's a good follow-up, too, from Carol Lee's question we just addressed with Shana in the last segment. She had mentioned one of those stocks being on BRI watch. So, David, BRI watch is a new description with the new website within the hold list / broad list category. So just to keep in mind, folks, when we say hold list, broad list, they mean the exact same thing, the exact same function for you. It's a stock that you own that you should continue to own.
So to clarify, you will never see a stock on the buy list that's BRI watch.
Correct. This is a hold list only category. It's part of the new website that we have to label companies that really are kind of in serious danger of being slashed for violating principles of biblically responsible investing. They haven't gone there yet, but we're seeing some very troubling things. And so basically, it's kind of the last warning that we have before a sell alert is issued. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a sell alert will be issued, but that would be kind of our very last warning. A company's on BRI watch. They're on the edge. They're about to go over, but they haven't gone over yet. If the suspicion leads to ample evidence, then this company gets labeled as non-BRI. We will issue an immediate sell alert, and oftentimes that's accompanied by a petition because, again, this sell alert is not necessarily for fundamental financial reasons, but because of biblically responsible reasons. This company is taking shareholder dollars and using them to violate our principles of biblically responsible investing, and we'll have no part of that. Now, David, a general rule for you, again, as I said this, I can't stress this enough, you should treat companies like this. If you have a company that is BRI watch, you should treat it as a hold until you hear from us. Very simple. Just treat it as a hold. Don't panic. I would also say just be ready to act if an announcement is made. We have several companies that are on BRI watch right now. What will happen, I can promise you, one of two things will happen. Okay, three things. One, the Lord will return and none of it will matter. But aside from that,
that's always in the
that's right.
background,
That's always one option. The other two options that will happen, I can guarantee you, are either the company will reverse, they'll stop using shareholder dollars to engage in wicked agendas, they'll stop stepping close to the line, they'll come back. By God's grace, we've seen this happen, and that's wonderful. We celebrate it. The company goes back on the broad list, the hold list, or maybe it becomes a good buy and it gets back on the buy list. That's wonderful. Or what happens, as I mentioned already, our suspicion leads to evidence. That evidence leads to a sell alert. The sell alert is often accompanied by a petition, and I'll tell you, if you want your portfolio to be biblically responsible, you will act on this sell alert and you'll do it immediately. That's very important for you to remember. So it's really important, David, I think, for you to just remember, consider this a hold. Same rules apply. You're not to buy stocks that are on BRI watch. You treat them as a hold. If you're putting new money into them, that's not a company that you should put new money into. I would say there's even more of an urgency for this because not only is it a hold anyway, so we don't think it's good for you to place new money into it as it sits, but there are also potentially some troubling things concerning BRI watch. So all the more reason not to put new money into it.
Now, Seth, I can imagine someone's listening to this and they say, well, this company is now on BRI watch. I have it as part of my portfolio. Why don't I just sell it right now and get the pain over with? And I'm just going to go for that. Why would you say that we don't do that?
Yeah. So that's, again, one other really good question, Sam. And I think the simple answer to it is we have not found enough evidence that we can say with confidence this company has violated BRI principles. It might be a really good company, and we want you to have the best chance to have really good companies. So we're not just going to, we're not just going to dish out sell alerts of, the first time that we hear something troubling. It's kind of like just firing blind. We're not going to do that. We're going to take time. We're going to look into these companies and see if these rumors are really true. So that's why we would tell you, if a company goes on BRI watch, don't sell it right away. Treat it as a hold. Wait until we issue a sell alert. Then you'll know for sure, okay, yeah, this company is no longer biblically responsible. Time to part ways with them.
And as someone who helps with some of that research, I can tell you it can take some time to clarify these things.
It absolutely
Sometimes
does.
you hear something and you want to know if there's going to be an update, further progression down the non-BRI line. And sometimes it's just hard to figure that stuff out. It takes more investigation.
Exactly right. We want to do our due diligence. That's what we're trying to do here. So, David, it's a good question. I hope that made some sense to you. And if you have more questions, feel free to follow up and ask. All right, Sam, quickly before the ag report, we'll take a look at the markets here. So in order to make sense of what the markets did yesterday, we kind of have to understand everybody was waiting with bated breath to figure out what was going to happen with NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA did report earnings after the bell. As to be expected, they continued to perform well, impressive after their 2-year breakthrough run that we've had since May of 2023. So better than expected earnings. But during the actual trading day yesterday, the markets were kind of just waiting with bated breath. They all finished in the negative, about negative half a percentage point. As of right now, though, the market's really feeling good. The pre-markets were feeling great this morning, and the markets have opened pretty well. The Dow Jones is slightly above the flat line. The S&P 500 well above the flat line, trending towards 1%. And the NASDAQ is up over 1% after NVIDIA's strong earnings call. The company reported, again, better than expected earnings and revenue, booming data, recorded year-over-year growth above 73%. So NVIDIA doing well. All right, we got the ag report coming here, folks, and then more financial issues right after this. Stick with us.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for May 29th. Corn futures saw a surge in volume as funds added to their short position. A rapid planting pace and rains in the forecast added selling pressure to the market during yesterday's trade. July corn finished today 8.5 cents lower at $4.51 per bushel. A lag in corn planting in portions of the eastern corn belt has some traders believing they're going to see an increase in soybean acres, particularly in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky. The prospect of additional acres coupled with slowing exports pulled soybean prices lower. Now, recently, 2-week export shipments are running well below the 14 million bushels that are needed to hit the USDA's projection. Now, it's also weighing on the market. July beans finished today 14 cents lower at $10.48.5. Spring wheat led the wheat complex higher during yesterday's trade. Now, traders had been expecting that the spring wheat crop would be rated as 71% good to excellent. So when the actual number came in at 45%, it generated some serious buying. As a result, Minneapolis July wheat was 7 cents higher at $6.0325. Kansas City rose by 0.75 cents to close at $5.2525, and we had Chicago a penny and 3/4 stronger at $5.3025. Cotton futures spent the day in a very narrow trading range. When the closing bell finally sounded, we had July futures 24 points lower at $65.33. Livestock futures were mixed. August live cattle were $1.12.5 cents lower at $208.17.5 per hundredweight. August feeder cattle declined by $2.52.5 as they closed out today at $295.62.5 per hundred. We had July lean hog futures $1.15 higher at $103.30 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures gave back nearly all of Tuesday's gains. At the closing bell, June futures were down 26 points, closing out today at $19.35. Well, this has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
Every day, thousands of women are faced with the decision of whether to have an abortion. But one ultrasound can change everything. For just $28, you can provide an ultrasound, giving a mother the chance to choose life. To make your gift go even further, a generous donor will match every dollar you give, doubling your impact. Just go to preborn.com/FISM to give now. Again, that's preborn.com/FISM.
I remember my life before I met Jesus. I was most of the time afraid. I remember one of my teachers gave the classroom an invitation for Crossroads. When they talked to me about the love of God, I felt a sort of peace in my heart. I learned how to pray to God. It helps me through my day. I will commit myself to learn more about God's Word, to be able to share the gospel to others. Jesus has been a big impact in our family. Now we go to church every Sunday. I see more happiness and less arguments. God's love is so perfect, I will not change God for anything.
To help reach more kids like Louise with the life-changing hope of the gospel, visit reachOurSchools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Thanks for joining us, folks. Appreciate you on the show today, as always. I just absolutely love the FISM audience, and I'm so grateful for y'all, especially for the FISM family that joins every day in the chat. It really is a family atmosphere there, and you're welcome. Anyone is welcome. John is there. Nelson is there. Nelson, the Lord Father of the chat, of course. Matt
Nelson
from
said,
Georgia.
I like to lurk in the chat.
That's right.
Which, guilty as charged. I'm
That's
a lurker.
right. There you go. Sam is a lurker. Sam is there as well. So is Ann. John, I think I mentioned. William is there. Uncle John is there as well. Trying to think, who else do we have? James from South Carolina. Good to see you, brother, as always. Am I missing anybody? If I missed someone, George is there from North Carolina. There you go. If I missed you in the chat,
if he didn't say your name, send in hate mail.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe with some threats.
Maybe I'll give you my home address. No, Walter from Texas. Good to see you as well, Walter. So thank you all for joining us. Stephen, I see Stephen there also. Dave and Darlene. Thank you guys for joining us on the chat today. Always fun. Folks, can't stress enough as well. Preborn.com/FISM. We're coming to the end of our campaign. It's been a successful one once again. We want to try to hit this goal. We're about $115,000 away. So if you have some giving that you're planning to do, consider doing it now and consider giving it to Preborn. Preborn.com/FISM.
No, move some pillows around on your couch. See if you find $115,000.
There you go. See if it's just buried
stuck between the cushions.
That's
happens all the time. Right?
That's right. And listen, I can just gently urge you. I can't force you to give it to anywhere, but I can just say, hey, Preborn's there. So there you go. All right, Sam, let's get to more of the news of what's happening on Capitol Hill. Particularly, actually, it's not as much what is happening on Capitol Hill because Elon Musk is no longer there. But he did say some interesting things about this big, beautiful bill. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Sam. What do we got?
That's right. Elon is joining the chorus of conservatives pushing back against the House's big, beautiful bill over its hefty price tag, telling CBS News that actually the whole thing undermines his efforts at Doge. Here he is.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
It can be big or it can be beautiful. It can't be both. And it certainly is big, Seth. According to the Congressional Budget Office, they say the bill will raise the deficit by $3.8 trillion over the next 10 years, with some saying that number could be as much as $5 trillion. But of course, Seth, it does have to pass in some form because contained within it is Trump's 2017 tax cuts that are set to expire. If they do, it will result in a 22% tax hike. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that failure to renew those tax cuts would result in economic calamity.
This is the single most important economic issue of the day. This is pass-fail. That if we do not fix these tax cuts, if we do not renew and extend, then we will be facing an economic calamity. And as always, with financial instability, that falls on the middle and working class people.
Thankfully, though, conservatives are confident the bill will pass, albeit with some major changes. One of those who is confident is Florida Senator Rick Scott.
We've got to get rid of the Green New Deal money. We've got to say, if you don't want to work, why do you get free health care paid by somebody else? Why do poor states pay for the health care of the citizens of richer states? I mean, there's so many things that there's no common sense here. So I think we're all going to fight to make sure we pass a bill that puts us in the process to balance the budget. And we can balance the budget quickly. You balance your budget. Part of it's going to be through this reconciliation bill with the mandatory. Part of it will be through the budget process in September through discretionary spending. But we're going to get this done.
All right, quite a bit of drama, Seth.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Seems like it, Sam. Well, I listen. I think I sympathize a lot with what Elon Musk was saying there, and definitely what Senator Rick Scott was saying there. Also, any move away from a socialist form of government, I'm thankful for that. I'm happy for it. It's a tough situation, Sam. It really is. By the way, speaking of tough situations, let me just pause real quickly here and say I missed Brian and I missed Lisa as well. How could I miss Brian and Lisa in our chat?
Expect some hate mail.
That's right. So it's great to see both you. Brian from Virginia, Lisa from Texas. Didn't want to miss you guys. Back to what we were saying here, Sam. It is a tough situation, and it's wise for us to remember this is the nature of politics. Okay, this is the nature of politics, folks. If you don't like a little give and take, maybe politics isn't for you, especially in the history of American politics. We've seen this throughout its history. There was a lot of give and take during the Civil War. There was a lot of give and take during some other, kind of crisis moments in our country's history, to be sure. Sadly, that's just the way it is. Look, I would love to not have the deficit raised by as much as $5 trillion. I mean, that would be great. It'd be great not to have that. Would love to not have a 22% tax hike, and I'd love to keep the 2017 tax cuts in place. I think that would be a good thing too. Seems like there's a chance we might not be able to have both. Right? As is often the case in politics, folks, you can't have both. And I do think, for us as Christians and stewards of our country, this is part of the reason why you have got to pray for your political leaders. Part of being a good steward of your nation is that you lift up your political leaders in prayer, regardless of your feelings about them, regardless of their political stance, Republican, Democrat, whatever. We have got to pray for these people. As much as we may think these are not the smartest people and they're not the people who are doing the job, they're the ones doing the job. For some reason, God has raised up these particular individuals to be the ones doing this job of making these really important decisions for our future, for our children and grandchildren's future as well. And so it is our job to pray for them, to pray that God would give them wisdom. Now, I do think politics is mostly theater, I think it's safe to say, Sam. Would you agree with that? There's a lot of theater in politics.
It's certainly a soap opera some days.
It definitely is. But there's some aspect of it that is indeed real work and important work. And so we need to pray for these leaders who are doing this work here. It would do us well to pray for wisdom on Capitol Hill to win the day, especially in a situation like this. There's going to be some give and take. We're not going to get a perfect bill. I would love a perfect bill. We're not going to get that, though. It's a lot to consider this. Here's just some food for thought. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, folks. Maybe you can share them in the chat. Raising the debt limit might be the price we have to pay to defund Planned Parenthood. I don't like it. I would love it for not to have to be that way, but it's a price I'm willing to pay.
And to secure the border, and to reestablish military strength, all those things.
Exactly. And to defund transgender surgeries, and to keep the 2017 tax bill and all that stuff. I think where I sit right now, and again, I sympathize with what Elon Musk was saying. I agree with what Senator Rick Scott was saying, but that might be what it needs to come down to. That just might be it. Sam, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you had, and I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but if you had to go one way or the other with this big, beautiful bill, knowing what you know about it, because I know some things will probably change.
That's the problem. It's so big. It's hard to know everything that's in it, right? So would you vote yes or no? I'd have to look at it.
Right.
But I think I'm with Senator Scott. I'd take a conservative approach to it where I'd try as hard as possible to reform some of the things in it, understanding in the end it is going to be a rather hefty price tag at the end. But if we can get rid of some of this Green New Deal nonsense that's staying around in it, reform some Medicaid, cut around the edges as much as possible. Politics is the art of the possible. I would try to do that. I think some of the libertarian talk out there, as much as like in my heart of hearts, I agree with it. There's no way you're going to get this trimmed down to a relatively small price tag. That's just not where we're at right now, because we're addicted to spending, and it's going to take some very serious conversations to adjust that. You're not going to just change that with one bill.
Exactly. And you know what, folks, as conservatives, I think we have to come to terms with the fact that most conservative politicians are addicted to spending also. Not all of them. Most of them are too. That's a bipartisan problem.
I think Ben Shapiro the other day, he rightly said that basically what you're down to right now, if you have Democrats, you're going to blow out the spending. If you're Republicans, you're going to blow out the spending, but you're also going to have some tax cuts.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So lesser of two evils. Oftentimes a lot of what politics is as well as the lesser of two evils. That's good stuff there, Sam. Yeah, folks, I can't stress enough. We've got to pray for these people. We really do. We got to pray for wisdom for them. We got to pray for the Christians. There are Christians, professing Christians on Capitol Hill, professing Christians in the administration. There's plenty of there's a large remnant there, and so pray that the wisdom of God and that common sense would prevail also. I think would be a good thing for us to do. Sam, quickly here, we don't have much time, but just give us the most important things we need to know on the updates with the EU trade negotiations.
Well, I would give these updates, Seth, but they're probably all blown up right now because of that court ruling. Now that Donald Trump can't enforce his tariffs. So what was going to happen was the European European Trade Commissioner said on Wednesday that the U.S. and the EU are in talks that include possible cooperation surrounding critical industries, things like aerospace, steel, semiconductors, and critical minerals. All of that being done with the threat of tariffs on the table. That was the United States' big leverage. Now that's gone, so I have no idea where this negotiation is going to go.
Real interesting to see, yeah. So, folks, here's what I want to encourage you to do. Tomorrow on the show, Shana's going to be giving her usual kind of weekly recap. We call it In the Know in the first part of the show. You're going to want to tune in for that. We're going to get a lot more information, I think, on this, on what happened with the markets, with NVIDIA, all that stuff. I can't stress that enough. And if you want to join the live conversation as well, you got to call in at 9:05 Eastern Time. I saw some folks in the chat wanted to talk to Shana. Shana's going to be on the show tomorrow. 9:05 Eastern Time is the best time to call in. We'll get you in the queue, and you'll get to speak with Shana and ask her your financial question. I do hope you'll join us tomorrow, folks. It was a delight to be here with you today. Remember, everything you have belongs to the Lord. Let's be good and faithful stewards with all of it, our country, our money, our family, and, of course, the gospel. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.